Aloha, inspired moneymaker. Welcome. And if this is your first time tuning in, welcome you here. And if you're returning, welcome back. When you hear the word retirement, what comes to mind? For some, it's exciting, dreams of travel, more time with family, or finally starting that passion project. But for others, it can be terrifying. No more steady paycheck, a lifetime of savings suddenly has to carry the weight of your daily expenses, all your needs, wants, and wishes. But what if retirement isn't about stopping? What if it's about starting to live your life on your terms? I know people who have traded in their 9 to 5 for freedom, but they didn't stop working. They redefined what work meant. They started businesses, mentored others, volunteered, even went back to school, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. That's their retirement, purpose-driven, financially sound, and deeply fulfilling. Whether your goal is traditional retirement at age 65, retiring at 35, or forging your own path, in this episode, we're talking about how to design a successful retirement. We're going to explore things like how to take a holistic approach to retirement wellness that includes your mind, body, and money, plans for rising healthcare costs without breaking the bank, how to build a sustainable income that adapts to life's changes, and staying emotionally and mentally resilient through the transition. Let's ensure that retirement is more inclusive and accessible for everyone. I know that retirement isn't one size fits all. In the old rule book, I think it is being rewritten. So stick around. You're about to meet 4 incredible guests who are going to guide us through the retirement from every angle: financial, emotional, personal, and societal. Before we dive in, I want to thank today's sponsor. Want to invest with more confidence and less guesswork? Seeking Alpha Premium gives you institutional grade tools without the Wall Street price tag. Think powerful screeners, detailed stock analysis, and market-beating quant ratings that have outperformed the S&P 500 over the past decade. Right now, you can get a 7-day free trial, and if you decide to stay, enjoy $30 off your first year. That's just $269 instead of $299. Use my affiliate link to sign up. I may receive a commission at no extra cost to you, and it helps to support the Inspired Money podcast. So if you love smart investing and want to support Inspired Money while you do it, this is a win-win. Try it for free today by going to inspiredmoney.fm/alpha. You can cancel anytime during the trial. After that, it's $269 for the first year. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. The subscription auto-renews at the then current list price. And I should share that I was just searching Seeking Alpha yesterday, looking at upcoming earnings reports and what analysts were writing about for a short list of companies. And it's very helpful. So again, the link is inspiredmoney.fm/alpha. Now let's meet today's expert panelists. First, let's welcome Christine Benz. She's the Director of Personal Finance and Retirement Planning at Morningstar, where she's helped millions make smarter money decisions. She's also the author of the book, How to Retire, 20 Lessons for a Happy, Successful, and Wealthy Retirement. She was also named one of the most influential women in finance by Barron's. Christine, so glad that you're here.
Andy, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Next up is Pete Neuwirth, a senior consulting actuary with I have 35 years of experience, but I think he's going to tell us that it is more than that. He has years of experience guiding Fortune 500 companies on retirement strategy. He's the author of What's Your Future Worth? Using Present Value to Make Better Decisions, and Money Mountaineering, Using the Principles of Holistic Financial Wellness to Thrive in the Complex World of Money Mountaineering. Oh, I think I totally said that all wrong.
No, you got it pretty much right. Yeah, it's a little bit, I do have a little bit more than 35 years, but people have told me that makes me sound old. So anyway, thank you so much for having me, Andy, and I'm really looking forward to this.
We're excited to have you because not only are you an actuary, but you're a leading voice in holistic financial wellness.
Well, I don't know. I was onto it pretty early, about 10 years ago. When I wrote my first book, What's Your Future Worth? I was trying to communicate the actuarial perspective could be very, very helpful to make better life decisions, whether it be medical, job, and so forth. And but people really didn't want to talk so much about that. But I did. So I started this URL, Holistic Financial Wellness, and .org, and I think I still own it. But because people wanted to talk about money, that's when I wrote Money Mountaineering, to give people
All right.
trail
So
map
we get,
the world of money.
we'll be sure to talk about money today. We have my friend Jason Vitug here. He is a best-selling author, wellness advisor, and founder of Frugal. Through books like You Only Live Once, The Roadmap to Financial Wellness, and A Purposeful Life. He has another book, Happy Money, Happy Life, A Multidimensional Approach to Wealth. I'm messing up the book titles today. A multidimensional approach to health, wealth, and financial freedom. He blends personal finance, mindfulness, and purpose to inspire meaningful living. Jason, you're just returning, I think today, maybe, from a social media sabbatical, where I'm assuming you refreshed your mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, I am. So I'm back on social media, and this is a great way to kickstart the engagement back on socials. So it's been, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. And it's been a great 6 to 8 months because I've been able to mentally and emotionally recharge and focus on projects I've kind of pushed to the side. And now I am ready, I'm stronger, and I've taken care of my mind, body, and spirit. And so now I can continue the work.
Well, all right. We welcome you and your long locks.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if Jordan Doc G. Grumet will be coming in. Hopefully, he'll be coming in shortly. Jordan is a regular guest on Inspired Money. I have not heard from him. No word on him not being able to make it, so I'm assuming that he'll be in. Jordan is a hospice physician turned personal finance educator. He hosts the popular Earn and Invest podcast and brings deep insight into the emotional side of money. He's the author of Taking Stock, a hospice doctor's advice on financial independence, building wealth, and living a regret-free life. His most recent book is The Purpose Code, How to Unlock Meaning, Maximize Happiness, and Leave a Lasting Legacy. We've just got a tremendous team of experts today. We're in for an informative, inspiring conversation. Let's get into it with segment one.
Retirement is a transition from a structured work identity to a purpose-driven lifestyle. Maintaining a sense of meaning involves pursuing hobbies, lifelong learning, or volunteer work. Engaging in social activities and using technology to stay connected helps prevent isolation. Intergenerational relationships offer mutual benefits, fostering a sense of contribution and engagement. Financial stability plays a key role in overall wellness. Unmanaged financial stress can impact both physical and mental health. A structured retirement routine that includes financial planning, exercise, and mindfulness practices supports long-term well-being. Activities such as group fitness, meditation, and financial check-ins contribute to balance. A retirement wellness roadmap should incorporate personal values, social engagement, physical health, mental well-being, and financial planning. By taking a proactive approach, retirees can create a lifestyle that promotes fulfillment, stability, and overall wellness in this new phase of life.
Christine, based on the lessons in your book, How to Retire, what's the single most overlooked component of a holistic retirement routine? Mind, body, or money?
Well, I would say probably mind, and I would connect that to connections to other human beings, because I do think that relationships, connections, social connections are a very underrated component of life satisfaction, life happiness. A lot of research has been dedicated to determining what leads to happy and successful lives, and much of it points to the value of human connections. So certainly keeping your mind engaged by staying engaged with other human beings is mission critical as we think about aging.
Pete, your money mountaineering model talks about peaks and valleys. How can that framework guide someone combining fitness planning and financial peace?
Well, to me, again, I'm more about the money and the risk. So, but in that sense, you really need to be holistic in thinking about all aspects of your financial world, including those things that could jump up and bite you. So for me, I think it's very important to really scan the entire horizon of your financial life and identify those areas that are, make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel afraid, make you feel, maybe overconfident, and really build in the entire picture.
Jason, you talk about intentional living. Like, what has your experience been like?
Well, I love what Pete said, that he's all about the money, because I am the guy who's all about the wellness. I just happen to talk about the money part of it. And so for me, I learned about 10 years ago as well about these multi-dimensional approach to life, that we're not just one dimension, we are 8 dimensions. So that's mental, emotional, physical, social, occupational, environmental, and financial well-being. And these dimensions are interconnected, they're overlapping. When one dimension is suffering, it has a ripple effect on other dimensions. And so I thought that just improving my finances was going to improve my mental health, my physical health. And that certainly can have an impact. But if I don't intentionally focus on improving my mental well-being, whether it's learning something new, whether it's de-stressing or things like that, or even regulating my emotions for emotional well-being, that will then have an impact on my finances. And so for me, intention, it really is about understanding that you are multidimensional, and that we shouldn't focus solely on one aspect, because if we let go of one area or focus too much on one dimension, that has that negative ripple effect as well on the others when we neglect them.
So it sounds like if you have different legs of the stool, if one's missing, you fall over.
Yeah, exactly it.
So Christine, if the mind is the most frequently overlooked, how do we systematically approach a financial plan so that it's more than just the money?
Well, I think it starts well before your anticipated retirement date. And so I do think the concept of retirement as this hard stop is antiquated, and it ought to go by the wayside. I've come to believe that a kind of a glide path into retirement is a much better model for all of us. So I urge people, if they're kind of moving into their middle age, maybe at age 50 or thereabouts, to really take stock of what aspects of your work you enjoy, what aspects you don't enjoy, and try to pull forward the things that you enjoy. And maybe you do that kind of in stealth mode, where you're not telling your employer, or maybe you're actively engaging with your employer about what your preferences are in terms of the complexion of the work you do. Because it turns out that work, whether paid work or some other activity that brings us purpose and identity and structure, that's really good for us throughout our lives. And we don't want to entirely leave it behind. So I would urge people to reimagine retirement as kind of a glide path, where you're shedding activities that you're not enjoying as much. And if you're someone who has neglected your physical self in the years leading up to middle age or older ages, it's time to really engage on improving your health. If you've neglected your relationships, really be intentional about figuring out how you'll put yourself in contact with other human beings on an ongoing basis. Don't wait until retirement to make these fixes. You should address them well before.
I was just going to say, I think Christine is absolutely right on that notion of starting to think about retirement well before retirement. And that glide path is a very powerful concept. And it also dovetails with something that we find in the retirement income strategy analysis, that one of the most important assets that a retiree has is the present value of their future earnings as a part-time work. So finding something that you love, that you can actually make a little bit of money with after your retirement, is a very powerful supplement to a retirement income strategy.
One thing I would interject, Andy, is that when we look at the data on who is working longer, it's actually the wealthier segments of our population. And so the people who are who are needing to work the least are able to work the most. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind, that people oftentimes have this intention to continue working, but maybe they have a job that's physically demanding, or they have health issues, or their spouse has health issues. There are things that knock people out of the workforce earlier than they might wish. So that's just kind of a caution when I hear from people where they say, well, okay, my plan is to work until I'm 75 or something. Great aspiration if you like that work, but it's not necessarily a plan. So just kind of a caution that people shouldn't lean too much on working income to make a save if their retirement assets aren't looking like they will be sufficient.
Wise words, and a reminder that not all jobs are created equally in terms of how long you can work in that job. Jason,
yeah, exactly.
How has your definition of retirement, has that changed over time? And do you see many people changing how they define retirement today?
Yeah, so I quote unquote retired early, and not because I had millions of dollars in the bank, but I just realized I needed to rewire. So we're having these conversations about that glide path. I think that's a really awesome concept, and the concept of rewiring our brain and not to retire from life and from living. And so, yes, the evolution, my understanding of what retirement is, because it's drilled down, since I can remember that, oh yeah, we retire at the age of 70. So we work all these years. We try is a key word, to save for retirement. And if we have to work, we just gotta, just get up and keep working if we need to pay our bills. And I realized that that is not the path, and there are different ways for us to go about it. And for me, I've traveled all across the country, and Andy, I have done road trips, 37 events in 30 days, all across big cities, small towns, and have these wonderful conversations with people with all walks of life. And the vast majority, and to Christine's point, the vast majority of people that I meet do not want to retire. What they want to do is actually leave work that they dislike or hate or just have to do. But when they think of their elder years, they actually want to continue doing purposeful work. And if they happen to be in a career path or in a profession that they absolutely enjoy and they love, they want to continue doing that. But unfortunately, when there are medical issues or there's family issues that prevent them from continuing to work, they're kind of forced to retire. And now that I'm in Florida, it's really fascinating how many people who are in their 70s, who are retired, who I continue to have these conversations with, that tell me that they are working not because they need the extra money, they're working for the social aspect, that they feel isolated and that's affecting them. So they've rejoined the workforce. They certainly are okay with a little bit of extra income coming in, but they're doing it for the social aspect.
Lots to think about. Let's move on to segment 2.
Healthcare planning is essential for a financially stable retirement. Understanding Medicare coverage options can prevent costly mistakes. Medicare Part A covers hospital stays, while Part B handles outpatient care. Medicare Advantage and Medigap plans differ in coverage and out-of-pocket costs, making plan comparisons crucial. Delaying enrollment may lead to penalties, increasing long-term expenses. Long-term care is another major consideration. Insurance policies vary, and alternatives like life insurance riders or reverse mortgages may provide financial flexibility. Evaluating home care agencies and assisted living options early can help retirees make informed decisions. Preventative healthcare reduces medical costs over time. Regular screenings, vaccinations, and telehealth services improve access to care. Health savings accounts offer tax advantages and can help cover medical expenses in retirement. Reviewing Medicare Part D prescription plans and assistance programs annually ensures access to affordable medications while maintaining financial security.
Pete, long-term care can derail plans. How do you build long-term planning into a retirement model from day one?
I'm sorry, is that, you're asking me about that question?
Yeah, just curious what advice you would give to people
Yeah.
for designing a healthcare-ready income stream.
Well, that's a great question. We view healthcare costs as a huge and very important component of the expense side of what you need to prepare for in retirement. But it's a very gnarly expense because it can come at any time. It can come in spikes. It can come at the very end of your life when you're really not, as well set up. So we build medical costs into the kind of generalized cash flow needs stream, which is full of contingencies. And one of the most important buffers that we find is home equity. We talked about the different assets people have in retirement. There's the 401k. And there's also, again, present value of future earnings or Social Security, but there's also home equity, which many, more than half of the people have. Tapping into that in a thoughtful and prudent way through a reverse mortgage, HECM, home equity conversion mortgage credit line, we find is a pretty powerful tool in that regard. And we've done some research in that regard.
Christine, I've heard you say that long-term care is the elephant in the room for retirement planning, and that if you don't have a long-term care plan, you don't really have a retirement plan. So what do people need to know?
It's a very tricky question for reasons that Pete outlined. And the trickiest part of all is that about half of us will have some sort of a long-term care need. About half of us won't. And so that makes it a tricky thing to plan for. I think a key step for a lot of people is to take a step back and think about where you would fall into one of three categories. So in one category would be someone who has very little in investment assets, who is likely to rely on government provided care should they need it. And so you'd want to be thoughtful about that, understand what it entails in terms of the restrictions on the type of care that you can receive. And then at the other extreme would be the very financially well person, the type of person who's on Morningstar.com, for example, checking up on his or her portfolio, the person with a multi-million-dollar portfolio. And then in the middle would be a candidate for some type of insurance, care insurance, or a hybrid type product, which your intro referenced, which would be a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider. Or as Pete referenced, in that situation, the home can be a really nice asset and can help alleviate some of the concerns that retirees might have about depleting their investment portfolio to pay for long-term care costs. Well, there's another asset in your life oftentimes, and that's the home equity that you might have. You just need to understand the repercussions. If the idea is to sell the home altogether, well, you might have a well spouse who needs someplace to live. So you just need to examine the alternatives or sort of the repercussions if you do have other people who are relying on you for that housing.
Yeah,
Jason, how do you handle it if you have, you retire early and you have a longer runway?
Yeah, so part of that is that, retiring, as I mentioned, I'm about rewiring. So it's not I haven't stopped working and I haven't stopped income from flowing into my life. I've actually allowed income to flow into my life more easily when I'm not strapped into a 9-to-5 job or work I have to do in order to pay the bills. But what I wanted to share was a story that, so my mother actually had to retire early because she was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And so I am my parents' caregiver. So I take care of my parents and things like that. One of the reasons why we relocated to Florida, and I handled pretty much everything for them. And they do have some savings and they do have government benefits and things like that to help them offset the cost. And so when we talk about long-term care planning, I tell my parents, and I joke with them all the time, part of their LTC was their care for me. So I'm paying it back. And that might be, being Asian, Hispanic, Filipino, that might be part of the cultural aspect of it, that our parents, my parents, don't think about long-term care planning and what they might need, because in their mind, they're thinking about constantly working and the money's flowing in. And also there is a little bit of pressure on the kids to take care of them when they get older. So that is definitely a cultural thing here. But what I've learned and what I talk with others, especially within my communities and out there on the streets, is the idea of the income floor. So the income floor strategy when it comes to retirement, for them to understand what is the basic essentials, the cost of the basic essentials today and perhaps in the future, in order to plan for retirement, to ensure that you're saving and you're investing enough in order to have at least the minimum to cover those expenses. I think that is kind of one of the things that I've noticed many people are struggling with, just to afford some of the basic necessities. And so when I talk about, like, when you're thinking about your retirement planning, consider that income floor idea. So this way you start with a baseline and then you work towards that. And then also tapping into, and Christine mentioned all these different types of assets, whether it's your home or things. And it's important for us to consider those as well as part of it. But what I encourage people to do is really think of the ROI of health, right? The return on investment on health, that when we're younger and whatever age we are, before we're unable to work because of a medical condition or a situation, that we start investing in our mental well-being and our physical health. Because when those things start fraying, when those things starts impacting us, it does have a financial consequence, and that will drain the retirement savings, and will affect the retirement plan. And so when people are really adverse on spending money on let's say a yoga subscription, $100 per month, and they're like, okay, well, I'm all about cutting expenses in order to meet these retirement goals. Well, maybe doing some yoga classes a couple days a week will help improve your mind, your emotional well-being, and also your physical health, that perhaps it will lessen any of the health issues you might have later on. Might not prevent them, but maybe, push them back or lessen them.
Anybody want to add to that?
I do. Well, first of all, Jason, I just want to say bless you for doing the care that you're delivering, to your parents. It's just a huge benefit to them, I'm sure. And I would also say that unpaid caregivers are the primary caregivers of long-term care in the U.S. today. The issue is that there can be repercussions for their health, for their ability to earn, because they're often quite occupied taking care of their parents, especially if dementia is in the mix. So that is something that people who want to get ahead of this problem need to be mindful of. Yes, your children may be there to help you, but there will be implications for their financial wherewithal, perhaps for their physical and mental health. So it's, I know, a great option in many families, but it's not ideal in some situations for the reasons I just mentioned.
And I do want to add to that. I absolutely agree with you that it is not an ideal. And before, I used to think that it's like, why do people push off the responsibility of taking care of their parents off to strangers or these health facilities and stuff like that? And I think that has a lot to do with my upbringing. But then eventually I realized that when your time and your energy is allocated to taking care of a loved one, it does take a mental and emotional toll. And the mental and emotional toll, because we're seeing, our loved ones suffering, unable to do the things that they normally have done before in the past, and that mental and emotional toll will affect us physically. And so there are moments where, it's definitely harder for me to get up out of bed, and then that affects my ability to do the work that actually pays or brings in income. And so it's not the ideal situation. And in fact, what I've learned as well, and being in Florida and meeting a lot of other caregivers who are unpaid, they tell me that many of their parents as well want to still feel independent, and they don't want to feel a burden to their kids. And that affects the mental and emotional well-being of our parents or those who are retired. So it is really interesting experience that I've gone through, and has definitely changed the way I looked at things.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's move to segment 3.
A well-structured retirement budget accounts for essential expenses, discretionary spending, inflation, and potential healthcare costs. Tracking spending and using budgeting tools help retirees adjust to financial changes. Creating a buffer for unexpected expenses prevents financial strain. Withdrawal strategies impact long-term sustainability. The 4% rule is a common guideline, but market fluctuations require flexibility. Sequence of returns risk can deplete savings if withdrawals are too high during downturns. Adjusting withdrawal rates based on market conditions helps maintain financial security. Managing debt is essential. High-interest debts should be prioritized, and options like downsizing or debt consolidation can improve cash flow. Diversified income sources, including Social Security, pensions, annuities, and passive income, provide stability. Understanding tax implications and inflation adjustments ensures long-term financial health. Strategic planning and informed decision-making support a secure and sustainable retirement.
Pete, you were a junior actuary at Hewitt Associates back in 1981. Give us some context so that we understand your work.
Sure. Well, as you say, Andy, I was a junior actuary in 1981, and in the fall of that year, a senior actuary came in and gave us all a training session on this brand new section. Actually, it wasn't a brand new section. Section K of the code, section 401, used to be about Social Security permitted disparity, but they rewrote it. And there's this new section K in 401 that this guy said, this is going to change your life. It's going to allow people to defer money tax-free, pre-tax into this account that's going to grow tax, and it's going to change the way retirement plans operate, and it's going to change your life as a consultant. And he was absolutely right. And 45 years later, we are now facing a situation that is not bad. It's a situation where people have big 401k balances, and many of them also have homes. And as we've said, there's all kinds of other assets, but they need to put it all together to form a retirement income strategy. And that's what, I've been doing for a while now. And the idea is to look at it as a cash flow matching problem. And so it's really all about managing the risks in the decumulation in the retirement phase, including sequence of returns, but also longevity, spike expense, and other things like taxes, et cetera.
As an actuary, how do you and your partners at Neuwirth Associates address some of those risks, things like longevity and spike expenses?
Well, that's a great question, and like I said, these risks are, for a long time, we were focused on accumulating wealth and accumulating to the number that you need with, the risk, returns, inflation, all in bound. But after retirement, now you've got to figure out how long is that number going to last. So what, are you going to die soon, or are you going to die, you're going to live to 100? Well, for that, insurance is the answer. Life insurance prevents against premature death, but annuities prevent against living too long. Now, insurance companies will charge a little bit more than the true value of that, but that's what insurance is. It's a premium to mitigate risk.
Jason, what's the most common budgeting blind spot that you see?
It really is retirement planning. So this is a really good topic. So the vast majority of people are thinking about, okay, yes, I need to invest in my 401k. I may need to invest in a general investing account just to store some extra additional cash and things like that. The blind spot is not planning for the lifestyle they actually want to live in retirement. And so whether they're retiring at 60 or 70 or so on, they're not budgeting for wanting to travel a bit more. They're not budgeting for perhaps living in a different location where it affords them access to different activities and things like that. And so that is a really key differentiator. So now the cost might decrease if they're leaving a high cost of living area for a lower cost of living area. But if they're looking at wanting to travel a bit more and be more active, there are costs associated with that. And so if they're just planning on saving or investing enough in order to cover their basic living expenses, that's important. As I talk about the income floor, it's the blind spot is what kind of life do you want to live, and what are the financial resources there in order to do that?
Christine, what are your thoughts?
Andy, I was going to say something super mundane in the realm of unanticipated expenses. I actually surveyed our Morningstar.com retired readers one time about the biggest line item in their budget that had caught them off guard. It was dental, actually, because many of them were used to having some kind of coverage through their employers. And of course, our teeth don't get any easier to care for. They get more expensive as we age. So that was the thing that people mentioned again and again. But I love the point about people anticipating lifestyle changes, and specifically, they should think about how their spending might change through the life cycle. So through the retirement life cycle. So there's a lot of data. Some of the seminal research on this topic came from my former colleague, David Blanchett, that looks at how retirees spend. And what he found is that on an inflation-adjusted basis, retirees' spending does tend to trend down through the life cycle, and then it might flare up later in life because of uninsured healthcare costs, mainly long-term care costs. But this syncs up with what many of us have experienced with older adults in our lives, where the early years of retirement are the feeling good years, where people have pent up demand for travel. They have good health, generally speaking, and maybe they're helping launch adult children in that period just after retirement, maybe extending for 10 years. Then the middle years of retirement might still be financially well, but the retirees might be inclined to, if they travel, they might travel a little closer to home, might spend time seeing their children and grandchildren, less of the exotic travel. And of course, this is a huge generalization. There are many 85-year-olds who are still taking exotic trips, and more power to them. But when we examine the data at large, this is the pattern we see. And then later in life, the spending often trends down even more, especially if people encounter some health issues. If you're not feeling good, if you have things going on with your health, well, then you're probably not traveling. You're probably not dining out as much and all of those sorts of activities, but you might have higher healthcare costs. So people need to be realistic about how their retirements might unfold. Use older adults in your life as an example of what you want your life to be like, as well as things that you might, want to shy away from when you think about your own retirement. So the go, slow go, no go pattern is in fact borne out by the data, and people should bear it in mind when they think about their budgeting. And that means that they can spend more earlier is the kind of punctuation mark on all of this.
No, it's a good reminder and a good way to look at the cycle.
I wanted to share an anecdote. So being where I am today, it's interesting when you said, Christine, dental work is one of the biggest issues. I've heard that many, many times in the past few years. And it's interesting that the number of older adults that I've met that fly out to Colombia to get dental work because of the fact that it's so much cheaper than the out-of-pocket cost here in the US. And so they'll tell me, they're 70 going, okay, I just need to get dental work. It's 10,000 over here. It's 1,500 over there. And they'll make a trip out of it. But I found that really interesting.
That's a great reminder. I think that Lynette Kalfani-Cox, who's been on the show many times, she and her husband, they have used medical tourism. And I forget where they went, but they got their teeth done, and it was a fraction of the cost. Pete, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I did. I want to say, I want to just sort of play on what Christine was just saying. And it's a yes and expect the unexpected, because what we found is that there's all kinds of different unexpected spikes that might come up. Maybe suddenly you get this opportunity to take a once in a lifetime trip. Maybe, you want to pay for a grandchild's college education, and it's anticipating and mitigating, because things will change in retirement, and preparing for those risks with whether it's a buffer asset or some other kind of contingency insurance is well worth it.
Good advice. Let's go to segment 4.
Retirement can bring emotional challenges, including feelings of loss, loneliness, and a shift in identity. Post-retirement depression often presents as persistent sadness, withdrawal, or a lack of motivation. Recognizing these signs and seeking professional support can improve well-being. Mindfulness and meditation help manage stress and improve cognitive function. Simple practices like guided breathing or daily reflection support emotional balance. Lifelong learning also plays a role in mental wellness, with activities like learning a new language or taking online courses helping maintain cognitive health. Volunteering provides purpose and social connection. Engaging in meaningful work or mentoring opportunities enhances well-being and creates a sense of contribution. Support systems, including social groups and mental health professionals specializing in geriatric care, can provide guidance. Prioritizing emotional health through engagement, learning, and self-care helps retirees navigate this transition with confidence.
Christine, what insights do you have on the emotional side of financial planning post-retirement?
Well, as I said, Andy, I think it's super important for people to think about some of the positive attributes that work confers, such as identity, purpose, relationships, and be preemptive about replacing them. And some people may have had sort of parallel activities alongside work all along that gave them those positive attributes, but some people don't. And unfortunately, I think the way that we work in this country is that people show up in retirement completely depleted. And so they haven't really been able to do any visualization beyond, I want to travel here and there, and I want to watch this, and this show on Netflix and get more sleep. All great things, but you need to have some visualization that goes beyond relaxation, that your best relaxation is going to happen when you're relaxing from something. So I love the idea of people preemptively kind of looking around, maybe trying out a few activities that they will pursue in retirement. Had a wonderful conversation in my book with Laura Karstensen, who is head of the Stanford Center on Longevity. And she makes the point that relationships, human connections are so important. And ideally, if we are connecting with other human beings outside with some physical activity, that ticks a lot of boxes in terms of giving us a lot of the things that we need to be happy later in life. So if people can think about doing those 3 things, ideally, maybe even all together every day, that will set them up for, I think, a fairly happy and healthy retirement.
Pete, I think your experience aligns with that.
Oh, absolutely. And beyond that, I would also say that once you get to retirement, you're going to get all kinds of advice from lots and lots of people. And I guess my advice is take it all in, but then take some time and just sit with all of that. And then because you're going to, you got the rest of your life to plan, take some time to really think about what that's going to be like.
And how do you do that? For you, you find that spending time in nature
absolutely
pays dividends?
Absolutely. I got a place right by a creek, right by the Santa Rosa Creek, and I go down there and I listen to the creek and listen to the birds and let the all of the noise and advice that I've gotten sort of sink in and process.
Jason, what's your advice? How do you balance planning versus going with the flow?
Well, I love that. I'm all about forest bathing, just walking into a forest and listening to the wind rustle the leaves and the birds and the creek, and that helps us center and also allows us to think, and that solitude, or even if we're there with a friend or a partner and things like that. So I think that is really important. What I wanted to focus on was this idea of identity. So for the vast majority of us, our identity is tied to our work and our profession. So if we've been doing this work for 30, 40 years, and then we retire from that profession, all of a sudden our identity is gone, and it creates an identity crisis. And so when we're in retirement, yes, we are inundated with a feeling of euphoria, and we're going to go travel the world. We're going to see our friends. We're going to eat good food. And to Christine's point, it's important for us to think about what we would do on a day-to-day. How would we fill up those 8 hours that was filled with that professional job or what have you? And yeah, so the highlights, the trips, the meals, and things like that are great. But it's also the downtime. And if you're finding that your downtime is 14, 16 hours a day of relaxation, it's not going to be really relaxing, because it's going to take a mental and emotional toll, because from going into extreme activity to pure relaxation after the euphoria has died down, it's going to be a mental and emotional spiral. And so I think it's really important, as we work towards retirement, to really think about the things that we enjoy. So the moment where we're not working, figure out, find the interests, find the hobbies. And I tend to tell people that, when it's I don't know what I'm passionate about. Well, passion's anything you put your time and energy into. And so when you go out there and you explore, you take classes, you listen to people speak, it sparks an interest. And that interest can lead into a passion if you devote time and energy into it. And we certainly and definitely, and this is probably the most staunch advice I can give, don't wait until quote unquote retirement age to figure out the things that you enjoy and like to do outside of your profession. Figure it out along the way, and figure out how to incorporate pieces of that into your day-to-day. And eventually, when you get to a point where you have to or want to or need to retire, you're going to be able to lean into those interests, and you'll be surprised. Some of those interests might turn into passions.
Love that. Anybody else?
Jordan Grumet is in my book, and he talks about one way to kind of think about how you might find purpose in retirement is to take stock of the activities that you really loved while you were a kid, but you had to sort of let by the wayside. So the example he gives is baseball card collecting, that he loved hanging out with these other, I think he calls them kind of misfit kids who were similarly into collecting baseball cards and kind of discussing the most valuable. And he talked about reconnecting with that hobby as something that he has enjoyed. For me, bird watching was something that I enjoyed as a young girl, and I have recently reconnected with as an adult, thanks to the wonderful apps that are available to identify birds around us. But to kind of take stock of those things that, where you got busy or you got engaged with your academic and work pursuits that you had to sort of let by the wayside. try to pick up some of those things. And chances are they will still be things that light you up a little bit. So I think that's really nice advice from Jordan.
Thank you for incorporating Jordan into this conversation. Yeah. I finally did get a message from Jordan, and for some reason, my calendar invite, I know that Pete saw this, did something weird with the time zones. So unfortunately, we're missing Jordan in this conversation. Let's bring it home and go to segment 5.
Financial inequality impacts retirement security, particularly for marginalized communities. Expanding employer-sponsored retirement plans, improving access to financial literacy programs, and strengthening government incentives can help close the gap. Public and private sector collaboration is essential in increasing retirement savings rates among low-income workers. Age-friendly communities promote accessibility through walkable neighborhoods, reliable transportation, and social engagement initiatives. Local governments can prioritize infrastructure improvements, while technology solutions enhance connectivity for older adults. Programs fostering intergenerational interaction help address social isolation. Healthcare accessibility remains a challenge. Expanding Medicare benefits, improving telehealth reach, and integrating long-term care services can reduce disparities. Policy advocacy plays a role in shaping retirement wellness, with organizations pushing for financial security, affordable healthcare, and inclusive community development. Raising awareness and engaging with advocacy groups can drive change, making retirement more sustainable and equitable for all.
Jason, how can financial literacy campaigns reach and uplift underserved communities?
So I think one of the most important things is to meet people where they're at. And we certainly don't learn about money using the languages that we use. So if you're looking at targeting marginalized groups, you're looking at targeting different segments of the population, we need to have a better understanding of how that population communicates and what are the specific situations and challenges. So for instance, speaking in groups that I talk to, and when we talk about the long-term care planning aspect of it, if we disregard the fact of the cultural aspect of having or wanting or needing to take care of our aging parents, if we don't have that type of conversation, then we're never going to be able to fully get people engaged in the retirement planning aspect of it. So I think it's really important to understand the community and use the language and the specific situations when it comes to financial literacy.
Christine, what's the next frontier in democratizing financial planning access?
One thing that has really worked in the realm of financial education is just-in-time financial guidance, where at point of purchase, you're giving someone just enough information to make a smart decision about whatever they're embarking on, whether it's taking out a loan to buy a car or allocating a 401k for the first time. If you can give them a little bit of sane advice at that point of purchase, that is incredibly powerful. We've also found that nudges really work. So there was some seminal research published several decades ago that pointed to helping people just kind of find a sane choice. So 401k automatic enrollment is the best example of this. If you automatically enroll people in and enroll them into a target date fund, oftentimes they stay the course and they just keep investing. Those nudges, I think, can be extended further, and I expect that we'll see more on the nudge front in the years ahead. The issue is that there's been, a little bit of pushback from some policymakers who think that that's a little bit too interventionist, but we do see that nudges really do help work in improving retirement outcomes. And then would have to say that AI is also going to be a helper in terms of being able to automate some of the financial guidance that people currently get through planners, where yes, we will still need planners and advisors, but they'll be able to be in a more sort of human position where they will spend time understanding the person and what they want. And then the financial plan itself can be more or less automated with the advisor's oversight. So I expect to see more on that front in the years ahead.
Can I
Yeah.
add? I'm sorry. So to Christine's point with the AI, I really do think AI is going to be an integral part of financial planning and the conversations we have. And to that point of human emotional intelligence, the human aspect isn't going to go away because money is very personal. And so AI is going to be used as a tool. It's going to streamline things, and we're not going to get away from it. But it's also important. I think those advisors and those planners who have strong emotional well-being, that dimension, are going to really excel when AI kind of takes over a lot of the mundane aspect of financial planning. And so that human emotional intelligence aspect of it is going to be very, very important.
Doc G, better late than never. My apologies for my scheduling snafu.
I'm just glad to be here.
What have you learned from your Earn and Invest community about retirement readiness? And where do you find that people need the most help?
Well, I think there are two aspects people run into. One is no one ever feels ready, right? So regardless of they are or not, sometimes the most engaged people still don't feel ready. And then I think the second aspect is trying to figure out this mix of what I think Jason was just talking about, this mix of doing it yourself, using AI, and then using good financial advice. So I think what the future really looks like is being able to integrate all three. And I think a mistake we made in the past was we either thought we could do it 100% ourselves. So we thought we knew everything, and then we obviously made mistakes when there was minutia we didn't understand. Or the other side was we handed it all off to a financial advisor and let them make 100% of the decisions without fully understanding them. And so I think the future and what we're all trying to strive for is to be able to integrate all three of those things well together to create a financial plan that feels good and provides us with what we need.
Has anyone on the panel asked AI for retirement planning advice? Just curious.
I don't think I have.
I've definitely run, like, when there's new legislation, I've definitely gone to AI and said, okay, how will this affect my taxes? And that's been relatively eye-opening.
Yeah, I've used AI on different financial planning aspect, not specifically on retirement. And so it can generally answer questions that are pretty basic. And the big key things is that it doesn't really yet understand kind of our own internal motivations and things like that. So it definitely has limitations.
Yeah, I mean, one big thing to point out is even all of us, when we're involved in our podcasts, our blogs, or giving financial advice, one size fits all rarely works. And so the question is, can AI integrate enough about who you are and your specific needs to take general ideas like the 4% rule and then tailor those to fit your specific needs? And right now, human beings are still better at that than any automated system.
It gets really interesting. I have to try it myself. I haven't done retirement planning, but right now I am shopping for a new car. And historically, I always either paid cash or I financed, right? Especially if I could get a very low interest rate. Now that interest rates are a little bit higher, I think that that's changed, but I did put into AI, can you compare for me what a lease looks like versus either paying cash outright or financing? And my eyes are open because those three choices are all open to me. But if I lease a car with the plan to purchase it at the end of the lease, I think it might end up being better than financing. And, sure, I can pay cash and I'd pay less interest, but if I lease the car, it might be a more effective way to keep my cash available and invested, and buying the car. And I've never leased a car. So it'll be interesting as I compare the numbers. AI is great for crunching numbers and giving me different illustrations.
Yeah. So the really cool thing about AI is that it's able to do those things and streamline the process of getting a series of solutions or answers. But because we're in the profession and we spend a good deal of time understanding personal finance concepts, and our education and experience are aligned in finances, we understand when the information is factual and correct. And unfortunately, when people are using AI to find answers to their financial situations, they may not have the experience or the background in finance to determine whether or not that information is correct and relevant. And so that's the issue that I'm seeing. And so a few months ago, before I went on my social media hiatus, I saw there was a trend on TikTok where people were uploading their bank statements onto ChatGPT and telling them to create a budget. And I was like, no way, stop. One thing, if there's advice here, is I do not upload your personal financial information onto these ChatGPT-like infrastructure, because now that becomes part of the quote unquote the public domain, and now your information is out there. But what on the other end, what I realize is that people, right, a lot of the younger generation, the Gen Y and even some of the younger millennials, they're really looking for answers, and they're going to lean more into AI. And so when we're thinking about retirement planning, like decades from now, for that generation, I mean, AI is going to be so part of their life that it's going to become second nature, as search was for us.
Generational attitudes are so important in all of this. I think people of my generation naturally assume that if you want a real correct answer about something, you reach out to another human being who's a professional in this area. A lot of younger adults actually would prefer not to get a phone call, not to have a Zoom meeting. They would rather text with a financial advisor. So I do think that generational attitudes are a super important component about what someone will receive and, how they will incorporate that information into their financial decision making.
Makes sense. And thank you, Jason, for the words of warning.
Yeah, no, I'm part of that generation where text me before you call me.
Yeah.
Pete, I want to get to you. You lost your home, or your house was damaged by the glass fire of 2020. How did that expose you to different communities and maybe inform your thoughts on retirement planning, accessibility, sustainability, and inclusivity?
Well, absolutely. As you say, I lost my entire home in the glass fire in 2020, and for 4.5 years I lived in the poorest section of Santa Rosa. I met a whole bunch of wonderful people who had very limited access, and also big problems with the system, the paperwork, the bureaucracy, and what I found is having, a bit of expertise and being able to help one-on-one, was so rewarding, and people were so grateful. So I came away thinking that one of the solutions is just people like us, and just people with expertise going out into the communities and helping and sitting with these folks who struggle and, help them figure it out.
One question I have for you, Pete, on that, I've wondered about that and volunteered at some pro bono events, and an impediment has been that I do not have a great working knowledge of like getting out of credit card debt or how to improve credit scores. I know a lot about helping financially well people do better with their portfolios, but I felt deficient in terms of what I could offer people. I maybe know an above average amount about some of those things, but not a lot. So how did you get up to speed on those things that you needed to in order to be helpful?
Well, it turns out that, in the land of the blind, the one-end man is king. I mean, people would come to me with, problems on their, car insurance. And, I'm an actuary, but I don't know anything about car insurance or how that claims management is done. But, people were getting messed up, and it was messing up their financial life. So you just look at what they've got and try to figure it out, and make sure you don't say, now take this to the bank, or I know this. I don't tell people about, that I know something I don't, but it turns out that people's problems are often very, very basic and can be thought through with just a little bit of background knowledge.
Yeah, that's great. One thing I learned is that credit scores are king, right? I remember helping someone in my life work on her auto insurance. And I was like, what on earth is going on here? It turns out your auto insurance rates are affected by whatever your credit score is, which was something I was unaware of.
Yeah, one thing I've learned when I do these events as well, these pro bono work in the communities I serve, is that I do not know the answers to everything. All I need to know is the people or my network that may have the answers to these questions, and I'll lean into them or refer them.
Pays to be a good listener. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining today. This has been a very informative conversation, lots to think about as we plan for our futures. One of my biggest takeaways from today's panel is that retirement is not an end, it's a beginning. And the most successful retirements aren't just financially secure, they're intentional, purpose-driven, and emotionally fulfilling. So whether you're nearing retirement early on in your journey or somewhere in between, the real goal is to design a life you don't need to take a break from, one that reflects your values, supports your wellness, and keeps you connected. Here's one assignment for you, Inspired Moneymaker. Take 20 minutes this week to write down your vision for retirement, not just the numbers, include the numbers, but also think about your life. What does a meaningful day look like? Who do you want to be with? What are you doing? Then ask yourself, what small step can I take now to start living that vision today? And then you can reverse engineer that back to your finances. So thank you for being here with us. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or loved one who's always thinking about their next chapter, and let's keep the conversation going. And oh yeah, if you're on LinkedIn, let's connect. Find me by searching Advisor Andy. Inspired Money is created and produced by me and Bradley John Eaglefeather. Bradley is behind the scenes during the live stream. He edited the segments. Chad Lawrence does our graphics, animations, and editing. Before we part ways, I want to give a big shout out to our guests today. If you found value in today's episode, go follow their work and keep learning from the best. Follow Christine Benz at Morningstar.com. Buy her book, How to Retire, 20 Lessons for a Happy, Successful, and Wealthy Retirement. Expand your investing horizons by listening to her The Long View podcast, where she is a host. Connect with Pete Neuwirth at neuwirthassociates.consulting or capacuity.com. Check out his books, What's Your Future Worth and Money Mountaineering. Visit Jason Vitug at frugal.com and don't miss his books, You Only Live Once, Happy Money, Happy Life, and Make Your Money Smile. Thank you to Jordan Doc G. Grumet for coming in and showing up. My apologies again for messing up the scheduling, but make sure you subscribe to his Earn and Invest podcast. I love the work that he's doing there. I also am a big fan of his books, Taking Stock and The Purpose Code. Do you guys have anything that you want to plug? Any upcoming events or things that you want to share? All right.
One quick thing I'd mention, Andy, is the Jonathan Clements Getting Going on Savings Initiative for people who want to contribute to a 501c3 charity that is going to help set up young working adults with Roth IRAs. They can check us out at the John C. Bogle Center for Financial Literacy, where we are funding the initiative.
Oh, that's great. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Clement and was very touched by watching one of his YouTube videos where he shared a terminal diagnosis. So my thoughts and wishes go out to him, and best wishes on that project. Inspired Money returns next week on Wednesday. That's July 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern. Our topic will be unlocking the power of entrepreneurship, turning ideas into profitable ventures. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens. Thanks, everyone.